Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhavastavaya Kritadhir. Bhavastavaya Kritadhir. Nashaknod anuragataha. Nashaknod anuragataha. Utkantyad bashpa kalaya. Utkantyad bashpa kalaya. Sampare tam sutam smaran. Sampare tam sutam smaran. Bhavastavaya, for praying to Lord Shiva. Kritadihi, although decided. Na, never. Ashaknot, was able. Anuragataha, by feeling. Okantyat, because of eagerness. Bashpakalaya, with tears in the eyes. Samparetam, dead. Sutam, daughter. Smaran, remembering. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. King Daksha wanted to offer prayers to Lord Shiva, but as he remembered the ill-fated death of his daughter Sati, his eyes filled with tears, and in bereavement his voice choked up, and he could not say anything. Text 12. Krichrat samstabhya cha manaha prema vihlalitaha sudihi shashamsa nirvelikena bhavenasham prajapatihi. At this time, King Daksha, afflicted by love and affection, was very much awakened to his real senses. With great endeavor, he pacified his mind, checked his feelings, and with pure consciousness began to offer prayers to Lord Shiva. Text 13. Daksha uvacha bhuyan-anugraha aho bhavata krito me dandastvaya mai brito yad api pralambaha na brahma bandhushu cha vam bhagavan avajna tubhyam arescha kuta eva dhrita vrateshu. King Daksha said, "My dear Lord Shiva, I committed a great offense against you. But you are so kind that instead of withdrawing your mercy, you have done me a great favor by punishing me. You and Lord Vishnu never neglect even useless, unqualified brahmanas. Why then should you neglect me, who am engaged in performing sacrifices?" Purport. Although Daksha felt defeated, he knew that his punishment was simply the great mercy of Lord Shiva. He remembered that Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu are never neglectful of the brahmanas, even though the brahmanas are sometimes unqualified. According to Vedic civilization, a descendant of a brahmana family should never be heavily punished This was exemplified in Arjuna's treatment of Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama was the son of a great Brahmana, Dronacharya, and in spite of his having committed the great offense of killing all the sleeping sons of Pandavas, for which he was condemned even by Lord Krishna, Arjuna excused him by not killing him because he happened to be the son of a Brahmana. The word Brahmabandhushu used here is significant. Brahmabandhu means a person who is born of a Brahmana father, but whose activities are not up to the standard of the Brahmanas. Such a person is not a Brahmana, but a Brahmabandhu. Daksha proved himself to be a Brahmabandhu. He was born of a great Brahmana father, Lord Brahma, but his treatments of Lord Shiva was not exactly Brahmanical. Therefore, he admitted that he was not a perfect Brahmana. Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, however, are affectionate even to an imperfect Brahmana. Lord Shiva punished Daksha not as one does his enemy. Rather, he punished Daksha just to bring him to his senses, so that he would know that he had done wrong. Daksha could understand this, and he acknowledged the great mercy of Lord Krishna and Lord Shiva towards the fallen Brahmanas, including even himself. Although he was fallen, his vow was to execute the service as is the duty of the Brahmanas. Thus he began his prayers to Lord Shiva. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So, Daksha is in tears, remembering the death of his daughter Sati, and his voice choked. Even though he wanted to offer prayers to Lord Shiva, his voice choked. And because of all this that has happened, Daksha was finally awakened to his real senses, and therefore he could express his feeling towards his daughter, who had an unfortunate death caused by him. And with these sentiments, he somehow managed to start offering prayers to Lord Shiva. And Daksha said, "My dear Lord Shiva, I committed a great offense against you, but you are so kind that instead of withdrawing your mercy, you have done me a great favor by punishing me. You and Lord Vishnu never neglect even useless, unqualified Brahmanas. Why then should you neglect me, who am engaged in performing sacrifices?" So, Lord Shiva's punishment of Daksha, very merciful punishment, and not out of an anger like that directed towards an enemy. Anger can be directed towards an enemy in the mood of an enemy, and anger can also be directed in the mood of compassion, that how can so and so, who is a Brahmana, do such a thing. So I had to set him right. In that mood also there can be anger and punishment. So the punishment that Lord Shiva did, though it looks like such a great personality, why is he retaliating like this? After all, Daksha was doing a fire sacrifice for the good of the world. He should have just, even if his share was not there, he should have tolerated. But Lord Shiva had a duty to do, to set right the wrongs of Daksha, where he lost Sati. And therefore it was not retaliation, but it was not retaliation, not vengeful, not challenging, but was meant for punishment, meant for correcting. And that is what Daksha himself is saying, that you have done a great favor. Instead of simply keeping quiet, you have punished me. You and Lord Vishnu never neglect even useless, unqualified brahmanas. Why then should you neglect me who am engaged in performing sacrifices? So, when a Vaishnava is offended, if you take this example of very exalted Vaishnavas, they can respond to it instead of simply being humble in that sense. They can respond to it, which will look externally to be like being affected by somebody offending, but in reality it's a mercy shown on the person. For, of course, it's not, Shiva set a great example by not retaliating in the first instance, the first circle of exchange of harsh words. Not exchange, Shiva was silent. Daksha spoke harsh words against Lord Shiva, insulted him, and he did not take that offense, he just walked out. But when it came to offending Sati, he responded in a different way, and that response was essential to teach a lesson to Daksha. As Prabhupada says, he wanted to bring him, Daksha, rather he punished Daksha just to bring him to his senses, so that he knows that he had done wrong. Most important thing in being a Vaishnava is that, humility means humility in relationship with God, with Guru, and with Vaishnavas. It is not just humility of, many people say, okay, I surrender to Krishna, but I won't surrender to a Guru. A long way to go for them to become devotees. And then there are many people who say that I'll subordinate to Krishna, I'll subordinate to Guru, but I'll not subordinate to anybody else. This also is a next level of neophyteness. First neophyte is what? I and God. Next neophyteness is what? I, Guru and God. This is very popular in Ritvik system. Me, Prabhupada and God. Everybody else is a necessary evil in between. Unnecessarily there somebody is in between, I have to serve, let me serve. This is a system Prabhupada has told. He doesn't heartfully serve. That this is an opportunity for me to learn servitude. So ultimately, a Vaishnava is one who feels he is a servant of God, he is a servant of Guru, and he is a servant of Vaishnava. Attitude. Surrender is different, attitude is different. He wants to be the servant. So you separate these two things. Yes, you surrender to Guru, Sadguru, and you surrender to Krishna. But you are servant of the servant of the servant. Why you are servant of the servant of the servant? Because that is how I get purified. Okay, my constitution, self-realization means what? My self-realization is I am servant of the servant of the servant. So wherever there is an opportunity for me, I should engage in that kind of a... Then what happened? Then there is no pride. See, Daksha had a pride that I am Daksha, I am Prajapati. What is the Lord Shiva? Why he is not standing up when I came? Not only that, I am his father-in-law. After all, Daksha was doing sacrifice for Vishnu. Nothing wrong he was doing. That whole arena, somebody will say, okay, after all he was doing one mistake he did, he was pleasing God only, no. He was pleasing Vishnu only. So someone has simply pride in his relationship only with God, then no respect for Guru, no respect for Vaishnavas, then he will not have complete self-realization. Because in Vaishnava philosophy, self-realization means social realization. You have to go into the spiritual world and live in the spiritual world. You're not like going, self-realization is I can go into Brahman, then I don't have to know about what is respect, humility, nothing I need to know. Go and merge, my personality itself merges. So why I should bother of all these things? When I leave, I should just live in my room, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, and go and merge. Why I have to bother about being kind, loving and humble relationship and all? Not required at all. So in fact, all these Mayavadis or impersonal philosophy is very easy to practice. Jnanic process is very easy to practice, isn't it? For instance, in the ashram, which is the most difficult thing for everybody, relationship with others. Everything is nice. Prasadam is nice. Deity worship is nice. Kirtan is nice. All preaching is nice. Everything is nice. Come to ashram, so many rubbings. So there you get so much, how to deal with this person, how to deal with that person. He says this, he says that, this thing, that thing. Isn't it? Is it not? Sometimes devotees, they also think that, so much, this ashram life is so difficult. Better I take a room outside and chant Hare Krishna. But the whole problem is he forgets that all the other things that he has got, this what he does not have is something that he has to prepare himself and purify. Unless humility, tolerance, these things are there, you can go crazy in an ashram. Patience, these three things are required. It's not about who is right, who is wrong and all those things. Sometimes you may be right, other person may be wrong, but unless all the devotees have patience, tolerance and humility, you cannot sort out things. And instead of seeing that as an unnecessary difficulty, necessity is the mother of invention. The devotee should feel that, this is a training ground for me to be humble. This is a training ground for me to how to relate with Vaishnavas without hurting them, without unnecessarily, gossiping about others, without unnecessarily talking behind the back of others, without unnecessarily making groupisms. How to live without unnecessarily bullying others. In school you have bullying, no? A strong fellow will bully the others. Yeah? So in the same way in ashram also, bullying. So we have to be in this way small offenses we make, and it disturbs our spiritual life. Coming to the point of here, Prabhupada talks very important. The verse itself says that even unqualified brahmanas are respected by Shiva and Vishnu, why should Daksha be disrespected? So therefore Prabhupada uses this verse to explain that how the Vedic civilization, the Brahmanas are respected so much, and he gives the example of how Ashwatthama was also spared of very serious punishment by Arjuna, even though Krishna wanted him to be killed. The nature of the Vedic person in the Vedic civilization, he feels towards the Brahmana like that, because Brahmana is the intellectual class who is supposed to be guiding the rest of the society. Therefore there was a status, according to function in the society, there was a status for the Brahmana. Of course, here itself the word Brahma Bandhu is used in the verse itself, that Daksha himself accepts that, I am a Brahma Bandhu, because, even though I am born of a Brahmana, Brahma's son, but still, I did not properly treat Lord Shiva exactly as Brahminical behavior. Apart from that, besides Brahmanas being born in a Brahmana family, in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara has always faced great opposition from different quarters of caste Brahmanas for making Brahmanas just by samskara. Prabhupada himself was, faced so much opposition at different times after he came back to India with his Western disciples. Very embarrassing situations were there where the caste Brahmanas, so-called Sanatana Dharma, people, followers of Sanatana Dharma, and attacked Prabhupada, saying that you are spoiling the Hinduism. Once in Hyderabad, Prabhupada was staying in some guest's house, rich life member's house, and then Prabhupada was in the room, and other devotees with Prabhupada were in the veranda outside and behind the room, and then they were taking prasadam. Suddenly they heard, some people in Prabhupada's room shouting and arguing and all that. So devotees rushed to the room and they wanted to, who is this talking like this to Prabhupada? They wanted to beat them up. But one of the devotees with them, they said, no, hold. Because Prabhupada was dealing with that. Prabhupada was standing and these people were going on talking. And they were all caste Brahmanas. They were telling Prabhupada that you are giving threat to these Westerners, you are giving sannyas to these Westerners. What is this Sanatana Dharma? You have spoiled Hinduism, and etc. etc. They were shouting at Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was looking at the floor, not saying a word. They went on and on and on and on. Prabhupada did not utter even a single word. After that, all their voice had come low, it came. From the shouting, it came low and went on. And Prabhupada was not answering at all, not saying anything. And since Prabhupada was not saying anything, after they got fed up, they went away. And then, the devotee who stopped the other devotee from beating them up. So he was telling, see how Prabhupada, without beating them, he sent them away. His humility, by his humility, he handled with humility. So like this, in Chennai also, in Madras, Prabhupada was giving, program, and then he was staying also there in a caste Brahmana's house. So one Brahman gentleman, he told Prabhupada, your students are not chanting Sanskrit not properly. They don't know how to chant properly. So Prabhupada said, that is why, I have brought them all to you. You can teach them. Vrindavan, during the inauguration of the temple for installation, 1 week festival was there, and Prabhupada said that he invite all the big sadhus. And one devotee, Yashomatinandan Prabhu, he was an Indian bodied devotee, and he was given the task to go invite big Swamis in the Vrindavan. That time one big impersonalist was there, one Maharaj. So Yashomatinandan Prabhu went there to him, and then he told like this, 1 week festival is there, installation, all this thing, you should come. We want to print your name in the invitation. So he was number 1 in Vrindavan at that time, very popular. So that Maharaj said, no, I cannot come for that. How your guru is giving Brahminical initiation to all these Westerners, this is against the Shastra. He is spoiling our Sanatana Dharma. He gave this argument. Then the Yashomatinandan was a little well read in Shastras, and this discussion he has had earlier with Srila Prabhupada also. So at that time Prabhupada had told that you read one shloka, 7th canto, particular, immediately Prabhupada out of his memory he told him, you read this. And he had actually mugged up the shloka nicely, Yashomatinandan Prabhu. So what he did was, he quoted that shloka. And that shloka basically says, Narada Muni says, I'll just see that. Yeah. If the Brahmana has the symptom of a Shudra, Prabhupada had told, open Srimad-Bhāgavatam 7th canto, chapter 7, last verse. 7th canto, chapter 11, last verse. We can also pull out this sometimes. So remember this. They will think, oh, they know whole Bhagavatam. You can tell. Please open 7th canto, chapter 11, last verse, what it says. Okay. In this chapter, Narada Muni instructs about the duties and roles of Varnashrama. And at the end he says that if one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, as described before, even if he has appeared in different class, he should be accepted according to the symptoms of classification. In other words, if the Brahmana has a symptom of a Shudra, he should be accepted as Shudra. If a Shudra has a symptom of Brahmana, he should be accepted as Brahmana. Yasya yal lakshanam proktam tasya varna biyanjakam yad anyatrapi drishyeta tat teneva vinirshit. So Prabhupada had made, he memorized this in 1974. So he just quoted this to this Maharaj called Karpatri Maharaj. When he heard this verse, he opened his eyes wide in surprise and appreciation. He said, your Guru has trained you very well. But still he could not tolerate. Next he said, but there is actual tiger and a tiger-like man. A man may be considered like a tiger, but he is not a tiger. Similarly, a person may be like a Brahmana, but he is not a Brahmana. And this is just Mayavada word jugglery. And when he went back to Prabhupada and narrated, Prabhupada said, "Did you tell him this verse? Yasya lakshana proktam." I said, "Yes, I said." And he said, "Your Guru Maharaj has trained you very well." Prabhupada laughed. He said, "Yes, you are well trained. Your shloka is accepted. But still Karpatri is so envious, so unfortunate that he will not come to this wonderful temple opening." Now, if it come to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had to face so many opposition from different quarters. And in fact, it was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur who introduced the Brahmin thread. Before that it was not there, Brahmin initiation for the Vaishnavas. Because everybody used to think in those days Vaishnavas are sentimentalists, they are a separate class, they are not Brahmanas. Like that. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he introduced this Brahmin thread, Gayatri, and many of the Vaishnavas themselves, caste Vaishnavas, caste Goswamis themselves were criticizing Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for introducing this. So many revolutionary things were done by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had, he used to preach very heavily against caste Brahmanism, and therefore he had a lot of enemies, even trying to kill him. One time the caste Brahmanas are all joined together and went to the local police officer and told, "Here is 25,000 rupees, you take this, we'll finish off Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. You do not take cognizance of it. You don't take action." That police officer went to Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and told him, "This is what they come, but we take bribes, but not for killing a sadhu." And like that, this kind of things is to happen. Just imagine, caste Brahmanas. They were Vaishnava Chaitanya's followers only. Some of the caste Goswamis. Srila Prabhupada is saying, my Guru Maharaj's contribution is that he defeated caste Goswamis. He defeated this Brahmanism. He did the same way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Kiba Vipra Kiba Jnasi Sudra Kena Naya Yei Krishna Tattva Vetta Sei Guru Haya. There is no consideration whether one is sannyasi, Brahmana, Shudra or a Grahastha. No, anyone who knows the science of Krishna, he is all right. He is Goswami and he is Brahmana. But no one else taught that since Lord Chaitanya, that was my Guru Maharaj's contribution. And for this reason, he had to face so many vehement protests from the Brahmanas of caste Goswamis. Once they conspired to kill him, and my Guru Maharaj told me personally, by his grace, when we used to meet alone, he used to talk about so many things. He was so kind that he used to talk with me, and he personally told me that these people, they wanted to kill me. They collected 25,000 rupees and went to bribe the police officer in charge of the area, saying, you take this 25,000 rupees, we will do something against Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and you don't take any steps. He could understand that they wanted to kill him. So the police officer frankly came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Of course, we accept bribes and we indulge in these things, but not for a sadhu, not for a saintly person, I cannot dare. So the police officer refused and said, my Guru Maharaj, you take care, this is a position. This is because he so vehemently protested. In September 1911, while his aging father was lying ill, Siddhanta Saraswati took up a challenge against pseudo-Vaishnavas who claimed that birth in their caste was a prerequisite for preaching Krishna consciousness. We are not talking about Smartha Brahmanas, Vaishnavas only. The caste just see how revolutionary, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, they were. Within a system to change things is a revolutionary. One thing is Smartha Brahmanas who are outside us, they attack us and all those things. So, the caste conscious Brahmana community, that means those who were born as Brahmanas and were Vaishnavas, they were feeling that we are one up. We are a different type of by Bhaktivedanta Thakur's presentation of many scriptural proofs that anyone regardless of birth could become a Brahmana Vaishnava. These Brahmana Vaishnava, out to prove the inferiority of the Vaishnavas, arranged a discussion. On behalf of his indisposed father, young Siddhanta Saraswati wrote an essay, The Conclusive Difference Between Brahmana and Vaishnava, and submitted it before his father. Despite his poor health, Bhaktivedanta Thakur was elated to hear the arguments that would soundly defeat the challenge of these Smarthas. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati then travelled to Midnapur. There Panditas from all over India had gathered for 3-day discussion. Some of the Smartha Panditas who spoke first claimed that anyone born in a Shudra family, even though initiated by a spiritual master, could never become purified and perform the Brahminical duties of worshipping the deity or initiating disciples, even if he be a Uttamadhikari. Finally, Siddhanta Saraswati delivered his speech. He began quoting Vedic references glorifying the Brahmanas, and at this the Smartha scholars became very much pleased. Because he glorified Brahmanas. When he began discussing the actual qualification for becoming a Brahmana, the qualities of Vaishnavas, the relationship between the two, and who, according to Vedic literature, is qualified to become a spiritual master and initiate disciples, then the joy of the Vaishnava haters disappeared. Siddhanta Saraswati conclusively proved from the scripture that if one is born as a Shudra but exhibits qualities of a Brahmana, then he should be honored as a Brahmana despite his birth. And if one is born as a Brahmana family but acts like a Shudra, then he is not a Brahmana. On the final day, Siddhanta Saraswati was concluding speaker. He spoke brilliantly with great vigor and incredible rhetoric for 2 hours. When he finished, no one in the opposing party could say a word. There was simply no way to counter him. There was a huge uproar in acclaim of the brilliant Acharya. Thousands of people rushed forward to take the dust of his lotus feet. The guards pleaded with the people to remain peaceful, and they would certainly have their desires fulfilled. Taking Siddhanta Saraswati to a separate place, the guards forcefully took his feet and dunked them into a basin of water. The Acharya objected strongly, as it was his principle not to allow anyone to touch his feet. And if anybody offered obeisances to him, he would immediately offer them obeisances in return. Yet the guards, desiring to protect him from the press of the crowd, took this action, adding a few buckets of water to the quantity and distributed it to the crowd. In this way, the people felt satisfied and blessed, and they exhausted the entire supply in no time. Siddhanta Saraswati was thus acclaimed as the greatest hero of the conference. Regarding the validity of Brahminical status as we accept it, Prabhupada is saying, regarding the validity of Brahminical status as we accept it, because in the present age there is no observance of Garbhadhana ceremony, even a person born in a Brahmana family is not considered a Brahmana. He is called Dvija Bandhu, or unqualified son of a Brahmana. Under the circumstances, the conclusion is that the whole population is now Shudra, as it is stated, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. So for Shudras, there is no initiation according to Vedic system. But according to Pancharatric system, initiation is offered to a person who is inclined to take Krishna consciousness. During my Guru Maharaj's time, even a person was coming from a Brahmana family. He was initiated according to Pancharatrika system, taking him to be a Shudra. So the birthright Brahmanism is not applicable at the present moment. The sacred thread inaugurated by my Guru Maharaj, according to Pancharatrika system and Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Goswami, must continue. It does not matter whether the priestly class accepts it or not. When my Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada introduced this system, it was protested even by his inner circle of God brothers and friends. Of course, he had actually no God brothers, but there were many disciples of Bhaktivedanta Thakur who were considered as God brothers, who protested against this action of my Guru Maharaj, but he didn't care for it. Actually, one who takes to chanting Hare Krishna offenselessly immediately becomes transcendently situated, and thus he has no need of being initiated with sacred thread. But Guru Maharaj introduced this sacred thread because a Vaishnava was being mistaken as belonging to a material caste. To accept a Vaishnava in material caste system is hellish mentality, narakki buddhi. Therefore, to save the general population from being offenders to a Vaishnava, he persistently introduced the sacred thread ceremony, and we must follow his footsteps. This system introduced by my Guru Maharaj is a chance for all members of the society, scientifically based and applied, apart from exploitative sentiment of birthright caste system, to become actually situated on the transcendental platform. Last one, in 1925, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his followers were performing the circumambulation of Navadip Dhama, which had been a regular practice since 1921. The procession was proceeding with deities mounted on the back of an elephant, and thousands of pilgrims were loudly chanting the holy name. When Srila Siddhanta Saraswati was proceeding with the roaring procession with the deities of Sri Radha Govinda, a vicious crowd attacked the procession, throwing hundreds of stones and bricks. Demoniac persons, agitated by the preaching of Srila Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who had refuted the various bogus doctrines of 13 Sahajiya sects like Aulas, Baulas, etc., had instigated a gang of ruffians against them. Srila Saraswati Thakur, the deities and the pilgrims were all pelted by these demons. But although Navadip's streets became stained by the blood of Vaishnavas, by Lord Narasimhadeva's grace, none were killed. Saraswati Thakur had escaped due to the adroitness of Vinod Bihari Brahmachari, who had entreated a reluctant house owner to give them entry. Therein, Vinod Bihari, being similar in size and appearance to his Gurudev, swapped his white clothing with the red of his Guru Maharaj. With great risk, he then escorted Srila Siddhanta Saraswati back to Mayapur, and was later revealed by sympathetic local residents. The dastardly attack had been planted by certain caste Goswamis, who most grossly offended both the deities and the acclaimed Acharya. An eyewitness wrote in Ananda Bazar Patrika, "Today I saw the reenactment of the activities which were carried out 400 years ago towards Avaduta Nityananda by the two wicked constables of Navadip at that time, namely Jagai and Madai. However, when urged to make a case against the hooligans, Srila Siddhanta Saraswati declined, opining that they had done human service. Otherwise, how Gaudiya Math have featured on the front pages of all newspapers?" Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Grandharaj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki. Jai.